By the spring of 1944, something felt wrong inside the American advance across Western Europe. On paper, the U.S. Army had momentum. After the breakout from Normandy, General George S. Patton's Third Army was moving faster than anyone had expected. German defensive lines were collapsing, roads were open, fuel and ammunition were flowing, fresh divisions arrived almost every week. The maps on Patton's desk showed opportunity everywhere. But the reports coming back from the front told a very different story. American platoons were walking straight into prepared kill zones. Supply convoys were being shelled minutes after leaving staging areas. Infantry units advanced into villages only to find German machine guns already waiting behind stone walls and hedgerows, perfectly positioned. In several cases, American forces reached locations that intelligence had marked as lightly defended, only to discover the Germans had withdrawn moments earlier, leaving behind booby traps and artillery coordinates already dialed in. No single battle looked disastrous on its own. There were no headlines, no dramatic defeats. But taken together, the pattern was impossible to ignore. In late May 1944, outside a small town in eastern France, a battalion from the 90th Infantry Division advanced under orders that predicted only light resistance. The approach route had been finalized less than 12 hours earlier and altered at the last moment to avoid suspected German observation points. Yet, the moment the first companies crossed open ground, mortar fire fell with immediate accuracy. Machine guns opened from multiple directions. Within minutes, squads were pinned down in the wheat fields. Medics crawled under fire to reach the wounded. The Germans had not stumbled onto their position. They had been waiting. Similar scenes followed in the weeks that came after. Near Commercy, outside Nancy, along narrow farm roads in Lorraine. Again and again, German defenses appeared too deliberate, too precisely timed to be coincidence. Enemy artillery displaced just before American airstrikes. Roadblocks appeared on routes approved only hours earlier. By early June, casualty lists were growing. Soldiers who had survived Normandy were dying in engagements that should have been routine advances. Officers began comparing notes quietly. Battalion commanders noticed that German reactions mirrored American movements with unsettling precision. Patton saw the same reports. Night after night, he spread maps across long tables at headquarters. He studied after-action summaries, reconnaissance photos, and intercepted communications. He traced timelines with his finger, comparing when orders were issued to when German units reacted. He called in intelligence officers and logistics staff, asking the same questions again and again. Had reconnaissance been compromised? Were radio codes broken? Were patrols being followed? Every answer came back the same. No confirmed breaches, no compromised encryption, no intercepted transmissions. Operational security procedures were being followed. Briefings were limited, written orders tightly controlled, radio traffic kept to a minimum. And yet, the Germans kept arriving first. The effect on morale was subtle but corrosive. Soldiers at the front began to feel watched. Platoon leaders stopped trusting intelligence summaries. Company commanders delayed movements, waiting for confirmation that never seemed to come. Every hedgerow felt dangerous. Every village approach felt exposed. Publicly, Patton showed no doubt. He continued pushing his army forward, demanding speed and aggression. But privately, he became convinced this was not a battlefield problem. It was an internal one. By mid-June 1944, Patton had assembled a stack of reports that told a story when placed by side. Engagements from separate divisions, convoy losses from unrelated routes, timelines showing German withdrawals that matched American planning meetings almost hour for hour. The enemy was not reacting. They were anticipating. The final confirmation came in early July. A mechanized infantry unit scheduled to advance through a wooded corridor had its route altered at the last moment due to muddy terrain. Only a small number of officers and support personnel knew about the change. Yet the moment the first companies crossed open ground, mortar fire fell with immediate accuracy. Machine guns opened from multiple directions. Within minutes, squads were pinned down in the wheat fields. Medics crawled under fire to reach the wounded. The Germans had not stumbled onto their position. They had been waiting. That evening, Patton asked for a list of everyone who had access to the revised orders, not just combat officers, but clerks, drivers, translators, and administrative staff, anyone who had been in the room when the update was typed or distributed. The list was longer than expected. As Allied forces pushed east, American installations had absorbed hundreds of auxiliary personnel and civil workers, local hires, displaced Europeans, translators, typists, kitchen staff, maintenance crews, people considered low risk, far from the front lines. Patton began quietly cross-referencing access logs with operational leaks. He noted which orders were typed on which machines, which staff handled which documents, which briefings preceded German reactions. The conclusion forming in his mind was deeply troubling. He did not announce his suspicions. He did not order mass arrests. He did not confront his staff. Instead, he planned. Rather than issuing a single operational order for an upcoming offensive, Patton prepared several slightly different versions of the same plan. Each contained unique details, different routes, timings, and supply movements. These versions were distributed through different administrative channels. Then he waited. Within days, the results were clear. Only one version of the plan appeared to reach the Germans. Enemy defenses aligned precisely with the details contained in that document. Convoys were ambushed where that version predicted. Machine guns waited where it indicated advances would occur. The pattern was undeniable. Counterintelligence teams were brought in quietly. Surveillance began on the limited group of personnel who had handled the compromised documents. A final false plan was prepared, containing small but critical details, and deliberately passed through the same channels. Within hours, German forces reacted exactly as the fabricated plan suggested. That was enough. The source of the leaks was identified and neutralized discreetly. No public arrests, no announcements. The wider staff remained unaware. And the effect was immediate. Subsequent advances regained surprise. Ambushes drastically declined. Supply convoys moved with far less risk. Soldiers reported something they hadn't felt in weeks: confidence. Patton never spoke publicly about what happened. Records were sealed. Only a handful of senior intelligence officers knew the full scope of the operation. For most men at the front, the war continued as it always had, fought with tanks, rifles, and artillery across fields and ruined towns. But behind the lines, a quieter battle had been won. One that proved warfare was not only fought on battlefields, it was fought in offices, in typing rooms, in kitchens, wherever sensitive information passed from one hand to another. The enemy did not always wear a uniform. Sometimes they hid in plain sight, and it took patience, observation, and restraint, not brute force,
to expose them before more lives were lost. If stories like this matter to you and you want them to reach more people, consider liking the video. Because many victories are never celebrated, not because they were small, but because they were won in silence.